Yeah, what up, show? It's Tuna. I wanted to show you guys today a build that I've been playing for the past few days. You know, I've been skipping around from build to build. That's because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to play this league. But this one is pretty special because it's something that I really enjoy playing, and it's something that I return to league. And there it is. It is a Vaal Stormcall build. Yep, Vaal skills. And as you can see, I got the 2 Soul Rippers running. So I wanted to quickly explain the concept of this build. This build is pretty interesting in the way that it works. So we're using the Triumvirate Authority. This is pretty much the entire build right here. So the Triumvirate Authority is an insane ring. It's, I think, one of the most uniques that's been brought out, you know, in a little while. I think since possibly the Cirrus Gloves. And I think it's really interesting because it has variants in roles that can, you know, essentially drop from Uber at Siri or at Siri. Much like a Watcher's Eye, it's either, you know, going to be a 3 or 4 mod, depending on whether you kill at Siri or Uber at Siri. So yeah, in this case, some of the important roles are, you know, 150% more damage, Vaal skills ignore enemy resistances, soul game prevention duration, 30% less souls per use, and things like that. So yeah, the only mod that you don't want on the ring is increased skill effect duration, because we actually want to reduce our skill effect duration as much as possible, because yeah, essentially that's how we gain damage, as well as we don't incur soul game prevention. As you see here, we have a soul game prevention of 0, but if I were to put it anywhere else, then you could see that I have a soul game prevention of 0.8 seconds. So yeah, we're putting in our ring to do that. And yeah, we have to reduce our skill effect duration to the point where we get 0 soul gain, and we do that through using a warp timepiece. That's 15% reduced skill effect duration there. And we are also using window of opportunity on the skill tree. So essentially that will reduce our skill effect duration to the point where we don't incur soul gain prevention, and means that we can spam the skill. So that is primarily how we avoid getting soul gain prevention. But then how do we gain souls? So we're actually gaining souls through a double soul ripper setup, and you'll notice that I'm not using 2 flasks here, right? And that is because we're using the trader. So every 5 seconds we gain 4 flask charges per empty flask slot every 5 seconds. So that means that we're getting 10 flask charges, but we're actually stacking flask charges gained. So you can see that we're taking flask charges gained, flask charges gained. We're getting it here as well. So we're getting as much flask charges gained as possible. And not only that, we're also gaining flask charges on critical strikes through Master Surgeon. So that's on a cooldown, but essentially what happens is that when we're on a single target, we will spam our Vaal Stormcall. It'll keep filling up our flasks, and it lets us pretty much just spam the Vaal Stormcall over and over and over again, without ever incurring, you know, or getting to a point where we're not actually able to cast. So essentially that is the fundamental of the build and how it works and why we're able to use Vaal Stormcall as much as we do. And you'll see here the tree is pretty particular because of the amount of auras that I'm using. So I had to go travel over to Sovereignty to get that. And we also anointed Charisma, but essentially you'll be able to see all of that in the PoE. I'm not going to do too much explaining about, you know, how to level the build or the skill tree and things like that. You can see it the PoE. This is sort of a more advanced build, so I feel like it's for the players that actually want to engage in this. And yeah, so it's really important with Vaal Stormcall to make sure our critical strike chance is 100%. That is because it will snapshot. So Vaal Stormcall, every time you cast it, it deals 22 hits, and those 22 hits will either all critical strike or not critical strike at all. So if you don't have 100% crit chance and you roll a non-crit, that means that the whole duration, the 1.8 second duration, is gonna not crit. So obviously that sucks. So we really want that to be 100%. So that's why we use, you know, increased critical strikes through Vaal Sentencing, which is a pretty good jewel, but not ideal. And that's also why we use a Watcher's Eye, which I forgot where it is, but give me a moment here, we'll find it. Where is it? Watchers? There it is. Okay. So yeah, critical strike and critical strike. So we're using Wrath and Hatred. So that's a lot of crit that we get there. I could divine this a little bit more. So yeah, that is pretty cool. And I crafted these wands. So I crafted these wands to get the Vaal skills require 20% less souls per use. That is also so we can get, you know, more uses out of our Vaal skills and things like that. And these might seem like insane wands to craft, but they're actually fairly easy. So you would look for any prefix that's fractured, so T1 spell lightning damage, or +1 to all spell lightning skills gems and things like that. And then what you do is you use bloodstained, hollow fossils, and etheric fossils. And what I did is I just spammed until. Alternatively, you could just use you know, hollow and bloodstain, but I used etheric fossils because I primarily wanted to hit spell critical strike chance, which was what I was aiming for, but I stopped for crit multi because that's also a really good stat, and we can get 120 spell critical strike chance with Vaal sentencing. So yeah, yes, so you spam those fossils until you get a good suffix, and then you do suffix cannot be changed, and you reforge with a veiled chaos orb. And then when you unveil, you want to make sure that you're blocking fizz, percent fizz, and you're looking to unveil spell damage is extra. We're converting 48% of our lightning damage to cold. That is so we can you know, freeze and shatter. That's really nice, but also so we can make use of the hatred aura as well as the wrath aura and the zealotry aura. So we're scaling auras that way, and that is giving us a lot of damage in turn. That's about 25% damage per aura. Yeah, that is really nice, and that also allows us to use Watcher's Eyes like this. Because if we weren't dealing any cold damage, then we'd sort of be wasting hatred. But since we need the hatred crit mod, you know, we'd like to be able to make use of that through actually having some cold damage. So that's really cool. And also another thing to note is that since I do ignore enemy resistances, a Blizzard Crown is just insane. Since, you know, Blizzard Crown says your hits treat cold resistance as if it was 10% higher than its actual value. But since I ignore pen, or I ignore resistance, it just basically cuts through the monsters that way. And yeah, I ended up going for elevated redemption, so that's reservation of skills, 7%. But yeah, you know, I maybe shouldn't have done that. Alternatively, you can just get 2 skill points here instead and have more control over your helmet and craft it with essences and go for something else, like actually get some good suffixes rather than, you know, be stuck on what I am stuck with. I'll maybe recraft this at some point in my life, but this is what I got on my Walk Orb. It's really disappointing, but it is what it is. One thing that is important though is to get elevated spell critical strike chance on your chest. That is, again, because we need to have 100% crit chance there. So that's really important. And yeah, other stuff that we need, like we're not looking for anything in specific, but we're looking for some resistance here and there. So yeah, I got some damage against chilled enemies, and then I Warlord slammed it for spell damage. I got really lucky, obviously. So yeah, then I ended up hitting that. I bought these gloves actually for like 2x, so it wasn't that bad. And then I slammed with the Warlord. You can use a Torrent Reclamation. Alternatively, you can pretty much use any belt. It's not really an issue. I wanted to use this because I like movement speed and I like moving fast. And yeah, this is a really good belt for that. So I got with movement speed implicit and cast speed just to feel things are just like a little bit smoother. So like when I'm actually putting down my Storm Call, it feels a little bit smoother, which is nice. And the Harbinger of Time, obviously giving us 10% action speed. Even though it's nerfed, it's still really good. So we're happy with that. The boots are just the same boots I've been using on every build this league. Once you make these boots once, you never have to make them again. But we don't actually gain damage from Onslaught, and we don't actually gain damage from Tailwind. So you don't need these at all. They're just pretty nice because it gives you movement speed, and that's it. That's all they do. They just give you movement speed, and I really like movement speed, but they don't give you any damage since you know, it's gonna always be 22 hits per cast. So regardless of how fast you can cast or whatever, it's always gonna hit the same amount of times. The only thing that can speed it up is reduced skill effect duration. So yeah, that's the boots explained. So yeah, you could just go for like any boots, like, you know, resistance, life, movement speed. It's completely fine. Honestly, it's completely fine. But I do advise you make these boots because they're it's really fun to go fast. So yeah. And that pretty much that's pretty much the itemization on the build. the clusters and things like that. I chose to go for, you know, Storm Riders so I can get some power charges. Snowstorm is also really good because we do chill enemies, so all of our lightning damage is extra. It's really nice. We need to have Spike Concoction and Fasting. So Spike Concoction gives us some flask effect as well as fast duration and things like that. And fast charges gained. And Fasting is also the same thing. We get movement speed while under no flask effect, which is never, but we're only using it for fast charges gained. So that is the only reason why we use Fasting there. The rest is just critical strike chance, critical strike multiplier here and here. And then we got Blast Freeze. It's really, really good for our defense. So we freeze one monster and then everything around it freezes. Super, super good. And Sadist is also insane. This is just a crazy amount of damage. We are chilling. We are shocking. And I got on one of my Abyss Jewels, I got fire damage to spells. So that lets me ignite as well. So that's a lot of damage that I gain from here. And that's very highly recommended. I use one magnifier because this makes me hit a radius threshold. So this alone is one radius and I would need a lot more AoE to be able to reach the next threshold. So one of them is enough in my scenario, but you might want to check POB and, you know, to see what your thresholds are for that, for your radius. And yeah, pressure points, which is obviously just insane. It's a lot of damage. 5% double damage and critical strike chance, really good. For our rare jewels, I just got crit, life, and I actually went for intelligence because our wands are 188 int, and if I take this off, you see 15 int, but you could always take the 30 int there. We don't really pass through int on this build since we're a ranger and we go straight through the strength. So we're actually kind of int-starved and it really sucks, but yeah. So I would advise if you're crafting wands to not go for crystal wands, go for something that's a little bit lower on the intelligence. Otherwise you're gonna kind of screw yourself there and you don't want to be doing that. And yeah, I mean this build has so much more room for improvement. There's a lot more things that you could do to improve it, honestly, and you know, defensively it's not the best, but it's the best. It's really, really fun to play. And yeah, another thing to note is that I am using a Quicksilver Flask of Resistance that is actually capping my res. That might seem like a bit of a meme, but it's not. I mean, like this whole time that we've been talking in this video, I have never ran out of flash charges, even just AFKing in my hideout. So you can imagine that if you're actually like doing content, you'll never run out of flash charges. And yeah, I mean, it's honestly really good. Like I've been having a lot of fun with this build. I've just been delving a bit lately, and we went from delve depth 60 to 430 in like one day, and yeah, this build has been really good to delve with. The only thing that you got to remember is that since I am using reuse at the end of flask effect, the thing about this flask is that you need to click it, otherwise it won't start. So I often forget to click it, and then yeah, and then I'm kind of screwed. The Soul Rippers will always just go off on their own because use when charges reach full. So it's actually really, really cool that this build is now facilitated thanks to the Instilling Orbs. It's funny that this concept existed last league as well. But you would have needed some Omega Monka TOS Flask macro to actually get this build to work. But now since we have the, you know, the GGG approved Flask macros in the game, we don't need to be spamming our flasks to keep our charges up. So yeah, basically all you do is make sure that your Quicksilver's up. You can play this build with one hand, and you just go on and you just zoom, and that's just how the build works. It's really, really a lot of fun. So yeah, I've been enjoying it. I've been enjoying it a lot. So that is sort of what it looks like in Delve. And I wanted to also talk about the links in my chest. So since we are only using a 1 link to clear, I can use a 6-link lightning warp, and that sort of allows me to lightning warp around with no cooldown as much as I like, and it's really, really fast because we're stacking so much reduced skill effect duration. So because of the skill effect duration being reduced that much, our lightning warp is instant and, you know, has like no cooldown and whatnot, and we're using it on life tap, so yeah, it will sort of eat our life, but we're not really spamming it that much. So yeah. And because we're a Pathfinder, every time we use our flask, we gain life back. So essentially, our flask is getting spammed and we're getting life back over time. That is a life tap support, less duration support, faster casting, swift affliction, lightning warp, and enhance. And that lets me do this. So that's really cool. One thing that I had to actually balance was getting my vortex to consume enough mana to actually proc Arcane Surge. But it was also a little bit of a difficult thing because I needed enough mana to do that. And since we're reserving all of our mana and using everything on life tap, it was actually slightly difficult to get that to match. So I had to use Divergent Inspiration, which I don't actually really need anymore, as you can see. But yeah, I was trying to figure out how would I proc Arcane Surge without me, you know, having mana issues and stuff. But you can see here that I could just keep it on without Divergent Inspiration and it's completely fine. And it procs every time because our Arcane Surge here only needs to consume 15 mana. And right now this consumes 18. So that's actually perfect. And we have 28 mana. So that's pretty good. But that is only possible because I ended up buying a 1% reduced reservation Thread of Hope. So alternatively, you'll probably have to take this reservation here if you want that to work, because if I was to take off this Thread of Hope, I would have 12 mana. And unless I was level 100, I would not have 13. And since this costs 13 mana, then yeah. But yeah, you could take off Bone Chill if you wanted. So yeah, you wouldn't have that issue there. And that pretty much sums up the build. I don't think I forgot anything. I hope I didn't forget anything. But that's pretty much just a little showcase of what the build can do and what it is and how it works. And yeah, Vaal Stormcall is a lot of fun. Triumvirate Authority is a lot of fun. I love this build and I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.